The knock at the door made her breath hitch. Evelyn smoothed her hair with trembling fingers, glanced at the dim hallway mirror, and tried to see herself as someone worth meeting. The reflection didn't lie. The thrift store blouse sagged slightly at the shoulders, and her lipstick was cracked from being too old, stretched to last. But she straightened her back, lifted her chin.
Tonight was supposed to be different.
A blind date. A chance to forget the eviction notice curling at the corner of her kitchen counter. The half-empty fridge with only a bruised apple, a jar of mustard, and 2 cracked eggs rattling in the carton. She inhaled, exhaled, and opened the door. The man standing there smiled warmly, his coat still carrying the night's chill. His eyes flicked over her in that half-hesitant, half-curious way strangers do when the world has just introduced them. Evelyn managed a nervous smile back, until he said the words that made her blood run cold. "I hope you don't mind," he said, adjusting his cuff. "My kids are waiting in the car." For a moment Evelyn froze. She had imagined dinner, conversation, maybe laughter. Not children waiting outside. Her throat tightened. She wasn't prepared for this kind of test. Not with her own 6-year-old asleep in the bedroom, curled under a blanket too thin for winter. She forced her lips into a curve. "Oh, your kids?" He nodded. "2 of them. I didn't want to cancel. They're good kids, I promise." Evelyn stepped back, torn between politeness and panic. The man looked confident, well-kept. His shoes polished, his coat tailored. He carried himself with the ease of someone who had never fumbled for coins at a self-checkout. The contrast hit her like a flashbulb in the dark. "Would you like to bring them in for a minute?" The words left her mouth before she could stop them. He hesitated, clearly not expecting the invitation. "Are you sure?" "I don't want to intrude." She gestured weakly. "It's fine. It's cold out there." Moments later, 2 children shuffled in, a boy about 10 with neat hair and curious eyes, and a younger girl clutching a stuffed rabbit. They smelled faintly of peppermint and warm car seats. Evelyn's stomach twisted when she caught the girl's sneakers, clean and new, beside her own daughter's pair by the door, frayed at the toes, duct tape holding one side together. The boy glanced around at the flickering bulb in the ceiling, the sagging couch, the stack of unpaid bills on the side table. His father cleared his throat. "This is Evelyn," the little girl grinned. "Hi, Miss Evelyn." Evelyn bent slightly, her heart softening. "Hi there." For a few minutes, the apartment filled with an uneasy silence. The man, his name was Ryan, suggested they could go to a diner nearby, maybe grab burgers. Evelyn's cheeks burned. She thought of her nearly empty wallet, the bus transfer tickets tucked inside, the way she had skipped lunch so her daughter could have a full plate of pasta. "I'd need to arrange something for my daughter," she said softly, trying to sound casual. Ryan tilted his head. "You have a child too?" Evelyn nodded, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "She's asleep." A pause hung heavy. Then Ryan's daughter tugged his sleeve. "Can we meet her?" Evelyn's throat tightened. She wasn't ready for this collision of worlds, their bright eyes against her daughter's hollowed, weary ones. Yet something inside her whispered that hiding forever wasn't possible. At the 3-minute mark of this blind date turned reckoning, Evelyn felt the ground shift. This wasn't about romance anymore. This was about survival, dignity, and whether she could allow anyone to see how close she was to breaking. Ryan caught her hesitation. His voice softened. "We don't have to go out tonight. We can stay, maybe order pizza for all the kids." Pizza. The word hit her with both longing and shame. She hadn't bought takeout in months. Even a single slice felt out of reach lately. She looked down, blinking quickly to hold back tears. "Maybe just coffee," she murmured. "I can make some." As she set water to boil on the chipped stove, her hands shook. She knew Ryan noticed the empty counters, the single chipped mug beside 2 plastic cups, the weary slouch of her shoulders. She tried to pretend it didn't matter, but the truth pressed heavy on her chest. The children settled on the couch, whispering softly. Ryan leaned against the kitchen doorway, watching Evelyn. "You've been carrying a lot, haven't you?" Her jaw tightened. "Everyone has their struggles, sure," he said gently. "But not everyone hides them this well." The words nearly unraveled her. For a moment she wanted to tell him everything, the eviction looming, the fridge echoing, the nights she skipped meals. Instead she stirred instant coffee into mismatched cups and forced a smile. Then came the second sting, sharper than the first. Her daughter's small voice drifted from the bedroom, groggy and fragile. "Mommy, I'm hungry." The silence that followed was unbearable. Ryan's children looked toward the hallway, their expressions shifting from curiosity to sympathy. Evelyn's eyes burned as she set the spoon down. This was the truth laid bare. No lipstick, no borrowed blouse could disguise it now. She turned, her lips trembling, and whispered, "Excuse me." She hurried to the bedroom, where her daughter sat rubbing her eyes. Evelyn pulled her close, whispering promises she couldn't keep. Behind her in the living room, Ryan's steady voice carried softly. "Kids, stay here. I'll be right back." The sound of the front door opening made Evelyn's heart lurch. She didn't know if he was leaving for good or returning with judgment. Her chest rose and fell, each breath sharp with fear and fragile hope. Evelyn sat on the edge of the thin mattress, her daughter curled against her, fingers tangled in Evelyn's blouse like a lifeline. She tried to hum something soft, but her voice quivered. Every part of her braced for the slam of the front door, the proof that Ryan had seen too much and decided he wanted no part of it. That was how it usually went. People glimpsed the cracks, the duct-taped sneakers, the flickering light bulb, and disappeared without a word. But instead of silence, she heard the heavy rustle of a paper bag, the shuffle of shoes returning across the floor. Ryan's voice steady, careful. "Evelyn, can you come out for a second?" Her heart pounded. She kissed her daughter's forehead and whispered, "I'll be right back." When she stepped into the living room, she froze. On the coffee table sat a steaming pizza box, 2 bags of groceries, and a carton of milk. Ryan had slipped out not to run, but to bring something back. His kids were already opening the box, the warm scent filling the little apartment like a miracle. Evelyn's throat constricted. She covered her mouth with her hand. You didn't have to." "I did," Ryan interrupted gently. He was still in his coat, cheeks pink from the night air, eyes calm but intent. "I saw what was happening, Evelyn, and I don't judge you for it, but I couldn't just sit there either." She wanted to protest, to say she was fine, that she didn't need charity. But her daughter padded into the room, rubbing her eyes, stopping in wonder at the sight of food. The little girl whispered, "Mommy, pizza." Her lips curled into a smile Evelyn hadn't seen in weeks. Evelyn's resistance crumbled. The kids ate together, laughter bubbling between bites, the kind of sound that patched something deep inside her. Ryan sat across from her, his voice low as he explained, "I'm a contractor. Work's been steady. I'm not rich, but I've got enough. And I've been where you are, believe it or not. Years ago, before the business took off." Evelyn tilted her head, doubtful. "You? With polished shoes and a car outside?" He smirked softly. "You didn't see me when I was pawning tools just to keep the lights on. My wife, she was sick back then. I lost her, but I promised I'd never forget how hard those years were. That's why I can't ignore it when I see someone fighting the same fight." His words wrapped around her like a blanket. She wanted to believe him, but trust was a luxury she hadn't been able to afford in years. "Still," she whispered, "I don't want pity." "It's not pity," Ryan said firmly. "It's respect. It takes strength to keep going like this. And you've got that in spades." A fragile silence settled between them. She brushed a tear away before it slipped, but Ryan noticed. He didn't press. Instead, he leaned back, watching the children trade slices, the scene warm against the backdrop of her bare apartment. Later, when the kids were full and drowsy, Ryan gently offered to drive his home. "But," he added, meeting Evelyn's gaze, "I'll come back, if you'll let me." She hesitated, fingers twisting the hem of her blouse. "Why would you?" He studied her, eyes steady. "Because kindness changed my life once, and maybe now it's my turn to pass it on." The rehook struck her then, sharp and terrifying. What if he actually meant it? What if this wasn't fleeting? Her chest tightened with both hope and fear. She nodded faintly. Okay. After he left, the apartment was still but not empty. The fridge hummed with new life, milk and bread sitting where only scraps had been. Her daughter fell asleep with a full belly, her small hand resting lightly against Evelyn's. Evelyn lay awake long into the night, replaying his words, wondering if this was truly the start of something or just another cruel glimpse of what could never last. Days passed. Ryan returned true to his word, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with little things, a repaired backpack for her daughter, a stack of coloring books, even a second-hand heater when the chill deepened. But more than the things, it was his presence. He talked with her over weak coffee, listened without judgment, treated her not as someone broken but as someone seen. Evelyn found herself laughing again, sometimes caught off guard, hand flying to her lips like she had forgotten how. Her daughter began to look forward to his visits, her eyes brightening when headlights swept the window. And slowly, the fear that this kindness would vanish began to loosen its grip. One evening, as the children played on the floor, Ryan looked at her and said, "You don't have to do this alone anymore." The words hit harder than anything before. She wanted to argue, to remind him that she wasn't his responsibility. But when she met his gaze, steady, earnest, unshaken, her defenses cracked. She exhaled, a long, trembling release, and for the first time in years, allowed herself to believe she might not have to carry the weight forever. That night, when she tucked her daughter into bed, Evelyn whispered, "Things are going to be different." I promised. The little girl smiled sleepily. "Because of the pizza man." Evelyn laughed softly, brushing hair from her daughter's forehead. "Yes, sweetheart, because of the pizza man." And in that fragile, glowing moment, Evelyn understood the moral she had resisted for so long. One act of generosity can reroute a life. Ryan's choice to bring groceries instead of judgment had shifted their course. Tomorrow still held struggles, rent, bills, repairs, but tonight there was hope, and sometimes hope was enough to begin again.